Hi friends, welcome back again, and we're in part 174 of our working together through the book of Genesis. And you'll remember we're in the opening verses of Genesis chapter 22, looking at this situation with Abraham being called, or he's about to be called, to sacrifice his son, his only son Isaac. So I've called today's short message Abraham, Temptation or Test. So as I said, we're back at the beginning of Genesis chapter 2, and we've reached this point where Abraham is going to be tested mightily. I'll just remind you of what verse 2 says. It says this: "Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah and sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." So I'll just give you a moment to take in the momentousness of that verse, because in it God says, I want you to take your son, your only son, the son that you love. And God's use of this phrase, well, for me, it just heightens the nature of what he's asking him to do. He also tells him he wants him to go to Mount Moriah. Now that's an interesting choice. Mount Moriah is where David will build an altar, and Solomon will also build a temple there. And it is actually where Jesus Christ will be crucified, although it's renamed Golgotha under the Roman occupation. It's a very historic place, both from the Old Testament and the New Testament perspective. So he says to Abraham, I want you to go, and I want you to sacrifice your son. Wow. Your only son. Wow again. The only son whom you love. 3 times wow. Human sacrifice then and today is repugnant. It's repugnant to us, and it's a detestable thing. So why would God ever ask Abraham to sacrifice his son? My mother once said to me that this was the hardest thing in the whole of the Bible for her to accept. And I suspect a lot of people feel that way. Maybe you feel that way too. Why ever would God ask Abraham to sacrifice his son? Well, part of answering that would be for us to remember to always see the whole point of this story is that it is a test for Abraham. So, spoiler alert, God had no intention of destroying Isaac. What he was trying to do was, in fact, develop Abraham's faith. He wasn't after Isaac's life. He was just trying to identify and develop Abraham's loyalty. He wanted to see if Abraham would really trust him in the most unimaginable way by bringing him to the point where he was even prepared to sacrifice his son, his only son. God wanted to see if he was prepared to do that, and he was testing his faith. Now, I'm not suggesting this was an easy test. That was the whole point of it. I think this test is worded in such a way as to highlight just how painful an experience this was for Abraham. This was his son, his only son, the son that he loved. And God is testing him to see if he would really obey him, but I believe with no intention of actually ever expecting it to be carried out. Now that raises a question: does God test us in these ways today? Well, I believe in a certain respect he does, because this is a prototype which tells us that God will often ask us to sacrifice the things in our life that we treasure the most, that we offer them over to him. This is, of course, also an archetype of the greatest sacrifice that come, the type of sacrifice that God himself will make as a father. It's a flash forward to the very same sacrifice that God will have to make as a father by offering his own son Jesus as the only way of dealing with human sinfulness. But for Abraham, this is the final, the apex, if you like, the high point of the 5 great sacrifices that God calls upon Abraham to make in his life. He asked him to leave his native country. He asked him to leave his family, his extended family as well. He was then later asked to leave behind Lot. And then he lost his first son, Ishmael, whom he was told to send away. And now he's been asked to potentially sacrifice his son, Isaac. So the first 2 verses of this passage, and that's all we've looked at so far, simply tell us that God is revealing to Abraham what he wants him to do. This apex, the summit of the great tests he will call upon to make in his life for God. And what we will see happen in the next passage we look at, we will see Abraham's response to that call. And we'll find out how he gets on in the next episode. I hope you can join me back here tomorrow. So that's it for today from the Bible Project Daily Podcast. Remember, there's always a transcript in each and every one of these talks available in the episode notes of any audio version of the podcast you might be listening to. And if you happen to be watching it on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube in video form, you should find a link there to the audio version in which the episode notes are always contained. But anyway, that's bye for now, and I'll see you back here tomorrow, or very soon I trust. Cheerio.